Good afternoon, good evening, and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to be looking at the children in our society on a whole, and I'm going to be looking at schools. Schools remain a punitive institution. They have very little care for the children who attend them, unless of course you attend a private school, which is very, very different. Schools remain under scrutiny, but they are under scrutiny by Ofsted. Is that good enough? Who else holds our schools accountable? That's a question for you.
I've got to be honest with you, Dan. I think it's becoming a force of habit. We're silent on schools. We're silent on the Labour front benches who have attacked a BAME Home Secretary. Keir Starmer must have so many splinters in his bottom from sitting on the fence because, let's be honest, he's beholden to the hard left of his party. He went and pandered to them during the leadership election, and he's clearly beholden to the unions. And why he can't follow the lead of Alan Johnson and other Labour front benchers in the past under the Blair years have all come out and said the teaching unions are in the wrong, it baffles me.
Children and young people are referred to our mental health services. Presently, we have over 338,000 children who attend the Children and Adolescents Mental Health Services. We have 9,000 children who are excluded from school presently, and we have 10,627 children and young people who were referred to the National Referral Mechanism in 2019. The National Referral Mechanism was an organisation who was set up by the government to deal with modern day slavery. But are they having an impact?
Majority of the gangs are based in London. Their drugs are processed here before they are sent into the countryside. They predominantly sell heroin and crack cocaine.
This is the white gold, what they call crack cocaine. They're the youngers that take up the country. This cocaine in 2,800, but it don't come down from no one else.
The London drug market has become crowded. The increase of drug dealers means they have fewer drug users to sell to, so a limited amount of money can be made. To increase their client base, senior gang members go out to the countryside to identify new customers to sell drugs to. Once they have done this, they establish a base to sell from. This is usually the home of one of the new drug user customers. They pay them in drugs or cash. The taking over of the home to use as a drug base is known as cuckooing. Once the base is established, the gang employ young people to courier drugs up to the house, and they use the home as a base to sell drugs from on a daily basis. Once all the drugs have been sold, another runner will courier drugs up from London to restock and take over from runner 1. While runner 2 continues to sell drugs in the countryside, runner 1 returns to London, and this cycle continues.
I would say actually no. Who is tracking the number of children and young people who are caught up on the county lines? Who are tracking the children and young people who are groomed? Who are tracking the children and young people who are missing in education? Those are the questions that we need to answer. We need to get back to a place where the children are looked after in the community, where the children have a healthy fare of the community and the adults in the community. We need to get back to a position where we care for our children. We also need to have a voice around the table.
Parenting is not taught at school. Shout out to a man like Loki. No one teaches you how to be a parent, the biggest job you're ever going to have to do. I would make a major reform to GCSE entry. My biggest pet peeve right now, even with the system as it currently is the way it works in British schools, we have standardised universal criteria. We have standardised universal testing. So you have GCSEs, and you have no standardised criteria for entry. Yeah. So what happens is, and the government knows this, the state knows this. Working class white kids, their actual measured intelligence is, say here on average, they did a national study. The way teachers assess their intelligence is lower. Yeah. Lower than their actual intelligence. So if you're a white kid from a poorer background, teachers often assume that you're not as bright as you are, and we get that. Let's be honest. You hear a Liverpool accent or a Cockney accent or whatever, people have certain perceptions. For black children in particular, regardless of social class, what happens is children are much less likely to be entered for higher tier exams, and teachers under-assess their intelligence by a much greater degree than any other people, regardless of class. So I would reform that system, and I would make GCSE entrance based solely on your SAT scores, and you would see that actually that would make things much more meritocratic. I go into this a lot in natives. I've got 2 chapters on education, and so all of the citations are there. I don't want people to think I'm just being conspiratorial. I look at all of the data on that. But yeah.
But how do we get that voice around the table? How many people are school governors? And do you attend the school meetings? And if not, why have you not applied to be a governor? How many people interact with the local councils? How many people hold those councils accountable? How many people interact with the police service? Where is the IAG, and who is holding the police service accountable? These are all questions that we should be asking ourselves. We are all taxpayers in this community, but yet still we're not all holding the institutions accountable. We need to step up our game. We need to have voices. We need to hold these institutions accountable because we pay their wages. There are too many children who are slipping through the cracks. Too many children, we don't know where they are. Too many children who are unaccounted for in society. Too many children caught up on the county line, being groomed, being excluded. One child is one too many. So my question this weekend is, how do we get our voices heard? How do we return to parenting with purpose? That's community parenting. How do we return to this? And how do we keep hold of our children? How do we hold those in authority accountable?
Simply, if we don't give our children the very best education we can, we will be failing the next generation.
Let's just simplify this. In the end, aren't you just saying that if you squeeze councils as long and as hard as this Conservative government has done, there are consequences and they're being felt in schools?
Absolutely. What it will mean, and these schools have already pared everything to the bone, and the government keeps imposing more and more costs, they are going to have to either cut teachers or reduce the curriculum, and that ultimately will affect the pupils in those schools.
And one of the answers to those many hows are, we need to have a voice, and in order to have a voice, we need to have a seat around the table. My name's Claudine Dewberry, and this is Real Talk with Taking Positive Steps.